Am I eligible for EB-1? Do I qualify for EB-1? Is my profile strong enough for EB-1? And if not, what do I do to strengthen my profile? These were all the questions that kept me up at night when I was going through this journey. And I know for a fact that these are the questions that bother you too, because I have done 472 EB-1 consults, and this is by far one of the top most questions I get during those consults. Now, I got my EB-1 approved back in 2021 as a professor in communication studies, specializing in, hold your horses, online dating. Now, just because I got my EB-1 approved, would I suggest you follow the same path and follow the same process that I took? Abso-freaking-lutely not. Because I'll be lying to you if I said that as I went through the process, I was calm as a deer. I was not. I was extremely stressed throughout the process, confused if I have a shot or not, and deeply uncertain. So I would never expect you to follow the same process that I followed. But after I received my green card in 2022, just like any other PhD obsessed with a problem, borderline ADHD, I'm like, I want to figure out a path that people can follow where somebody who is 10 steps behind me can go through this process with 10% less trauma and 90% more peace of mind. So since 2022, I started creating content on EB-1. I networked with lawyers, EB-1 recipients, USCIS officers, you name it. And through that process, I've hosted over 120 EB-1 events, which have raked up 14,800, some ridiculous number of registrations. I have consulted 472 people and have personally coached 120 of them. And through that process, I have come to a conclusion. I have figured out why is it that competent individuals who are good at our day jobs struggle so much, and why are we so confused when it comes to EB-1? And the system breaks really early, because the problem starts with the way we evaluate our profiles. Because this is how I evaluated my profile, and you tell me if you relate to this or not. So this is what I did. I booked an appointment with a lawyer and I sent her an email. And this is the email that I sent her. I told, "Hi, Rupal and Aarti. As promised, I'm attaching 2 documents in this email that can give you a better idea of where I stand in EB-1. Number 1, I gave them a 1-page resume. And number 2, I did a summary of each of the 8 criteria, because I was going for EB-1B, where you have lesser criteria than EB-1A, irrespective. So I took those criteria and I mapped my accomplishments on those criteria to the best of my ability. So this is the resume that I sent her. Right? 1-pager talking about where I'm employed, where my research has been mentioned, a whole bunch of research publications. And then I took each of the criteria and I mapped on my accomplishments to them. Now, when I look at it, I know what the issue with this was. But do you relate to this? Because I'm sure you have done the same thing, that you take a resume and you submit it to the lawyer, or you go to a form where they will ask you surface level questions like, have you ever judged the work of others in your field of expertise? And you take your best shot and you answer that question. And then you map your accomplishments to the criteria in an Excel sheet and present it to the lawyer. Now, this is the reason why this does not work, right? That's why I've said 2 reasons why this old way does not work. Resume does not work because resume is optimized for employment. EB-1 is optimized for extraordinary ability. A resume is a 1-page document. EB-1 is 900 to 2,500 pages. And number 3, and the most important one, I'm not going chronologically as you see on the screen, but still, the reason why resume does not really work for EB-1 is because resume is optimized for a technical audience. Somebody who's looking at your resume already knows what's going on in your field of work. But a USCIS officer is a lay person. As a matter of fact, some of the USCIS officers are not required to have a college degree. So if you shove a bunch of jargon at them, they're not going to understand what you're doing, let alone assess if you're extraordinary or not. So that is the first way in which the old system does not work. The second reason why the old system does not work is because we map the criteria prematurely. This is what I did. I took the criteria, I guessed what it meant, I took my best shot, and I shoved my accomplishments under those criteria, which led to misalignment. And this created a false sense of doubt. And sometimes I see that people have a false sense of confidence as well. So what is the right approach? The right approach, I have found out and have created a framework around it, is what I call AIM. A for auditing your profile, I for extracting your impact, and M for mapping the criteria. Leave it to an academic to find out all these kitschy acronyms. We love a good acronym. So in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to take you through what this framework means. Why is it better than the old way? And what kind of results have I received by stress testing this on 250 profiles over the last 3 years? So here we go. So the first step is audit. Audit is not a resume. It is a deep dive into everything that you have done in your professional career that is currently not documented in your resume. Now, there are 2 reasons why you should do this. Number 1 is the first thing USCIS wants to see in your EB-1 profile is a timeline of excellence. They don't want somebody who just woke up today and decided to be extraordinary. They want to see somebody who has been extraordinary for the long haul. So the further back you go into your career, the longer that timeline becomes. And number 2, when you do such a deep profile analysis, you uncover wins that you did not think were a big deal, but actually work out in EB-1. For example, I'm thinking about a software engineer who used to be an intern in his college days, worked on his professor's startup, created the foundational algorithm for that startup, which then went on to be acquired for $2.5 million. Now, he was one of the early inventors of that algorithm. So once he tapped back into his profile, he could then use it as an instance of original contributions of major significance. How cool is that? But that is never reflected in your profile. So the first thing that you do is complete a profile audit. So I give people a 12 to 18 question profile audit. You can see a screenshot of that over here. I'm going to try and zoom in so you can see it more clearly. I'm going to ask you some questions here. You're going to answer, and then we are going to move on to the next step, which is impact. Now, this is where a lot of people fail. Because the thing is, we have never been taught to explicitly talk about impact. We've always been asked to lead with competence. Are you able to do the job or not? That too for a technical audience. So what you want to do is reframe each of the accomplishments that you have documented in the profile audit in ways that align with USCIS metrics like impact, selectivity, change, prestige, etc., etc. Now, you can do it by yourself, or you can use Clio, the contextualizer, and Impact Extractor GPT. This is my baby. I have worked long and hard to program this GPT to act like the nosiest person that you will ever meet, who is also skeptical. So what it does is it takes each and every one of your accomplishments and probes you until you surface the real impact behind that accomplishment. So here's an example for you. This is straight up one of the lines from a resume that one of my consults had submitted to me. He said that I'm a technical director. One of my accomplishments is launch new product lines, including type 3 wall coverings, mylar, metallized polyester, non-woven peel, thermoplastic, poly olefins, etc., etc., a whole bunch of technical jargon. Now, this means nothing to a USCIS officer. So I just copied and pasted it into Clio the contextualizer. So what did Clio the contextualizer do for me? The first thing is it called me out. It said that this looks like a scope of responsibility. It does not really look at the accomplishment, the impact, the outcome. So it asked me a whole bunch of probing questions. Some of them are, what is the role and authority of this person? What was your exact role in launching these product lines? Were you the concept originator? Were you the technical architect? Were you the materials and formulation lead? Did you have decision-making authority? Over what time frame did you do that? Then it asked about technical novelty and difficulty, explainable to a non-expert. For each of the category you listed, what was the technical difficulty and non-obvious about developing these products? So it digs deep and it really churns out the true impact, the true extraordinariness of the accomplishments that you have listed as one-liners in the profile audit. After you do this, then only do we proceed to map your accomplishments onto the criteria. But if you miss steps 1 and steps 2, step 3 is going to create a lot of confusion for you. Now, at the end of this process, you are going to experience one of 2 emotions. Number 1, you may feel extremely happy. And number 2, you will feel extremely pissed off. Both are good for you. The reason is, you may be happy because after you contextualize, after you articulate your accomplishments the way they should be articulated, and then you look at the profile criteria and then you look at the profile criteria fit, you realize that some of the criteria you did not think you could have, now you have. Now, the reason why you could be pissed off is because you may have done some work, but after you have contextualized it, after you have put it through the rigor of looking at selectivity, recognition, prestige, and impact, you realize that they don't hold up to the standards of USCIS. That's when you get pissed off. I've seen this happen a bunch, where folks, unbeknownst to them, got into that do more activity mindset, and they did a whole bunch, like gone and presented at IEEE conferences that were not that prestigious. So even if you have a bunch of them, you can't use it. Or if you're falling for the trap of publishing in journals which do not really have a peer review process or have an impact factor of 0.000001, now even if you've written 15 of those papers, they don't really count now, do they? But by the end of this drill, you are going to have a realistic understanding of where you stand in EB-1. So I'm going to share some results with you. How did people feel? What was their takeaway after completing the AIM framework? So this person said, though this is not 100% complete, I have populated the profile audit. This is a great exercise helping me to review my profile and documenting the accomplishments I wouldn't have thought of. Somebody said the Google Sheet to fill in the accomplishments I already have has given me a huge confidence boost. It is one of those rare exercises where the more you do, the further you feel like doing it. Hoping to get a review from your end. This is somebody who got the profile audit earlier. Gautam says that this GPT really has helped him turbocharge the way this job could have been done. And the one thing that I really liked about it is that he said he was very energized, because a lot of times when we go through this process, we feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so discouraged. But you need to feel energized because now you see your accomplishments for what they actually are. Then you have Divya, who says Clio is extremely impressive. This makes me happy as well because Clio has articulated her impact back to her. Lokesh said the same thing about the GPT. This also is another excerpt that makes me really happy, where he realized that there is so much power in the story that he says. And then lastly, these are all the reviews that folks have listed after I reviewed their profile using the AIM framework. So this person, Arun, says, you explained very nicely about how to project myself for the work I have done over the years. And it seems like I need to work on writing clearer answers. He got a lot of clarity. I recorded a profile audit for this individual where she said that it gave her a lot of insights. So this is what the outcome is when you execute the AIM framework. Now, to sweeten the deal for you, what I have also included are 3 bonuses. Number 1 is an evidence strategy. Now, even though you have great accomplishments, but accomplishments don't mean anything, even though they were impactful and they map onto a criteria if you cannot back it up with evidence. Now, evidence collection is not as straightforward as you may think. Sometimes evidences may be lost. Sometimes there is red tape when you have to get evidences of your work inside a company. So what do you do? How do you gather those evidences? I did a workshop on that. I'm giving you a free GPT along with that as well. I call it Cleo's cousin, Ellie. Ellie is the evidence collector. She is going to help you think about multiple strategies in which you can collect an evidence if a piece of evidence is missing. And number 3, I have done live profile audits of 3 individuals that you can see in videos. They are 10 to 15 minutes long. So go through those videos and see how I'm mapping the criteria to the profile, where it falls short, where they hold up, etc. So I wish somebody did this for me when I was going through this process. It would have given me a lot more confidence. It would have made me more calmer, and I would have had 100% more peace of mind, knowing what I have with certainty, knowing what I don't have with certainty, and know exactly what I need to do next to get EB-1 ready. So I'm gifting this all to you for $9 only. If you want to grab that, you can hit the offer button below. And I hope to see you on the other side. Good luck.